Up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30am.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show, that's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Headliners is coming right up, but first, our top story this hour. The Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says the UK is ready to provide any support that Israel needs after it was attacked by the terrorist organisation Hamas. Now, those of you watching on TV can see live footage of Gaza's night skyline. Israel says 800 Hamas targets have been hit over the last 2 days, killing hundreds of fighters, with dozens more captured. Earlier, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said they will turn anywhere Hamas terrorists are hiding into an island of ruins. He also urged the people of Gaza to leave those areas now. More than 700 Israelis were killed and more than 1,500 injured in yesterday's surprise attack. Nathaniel Young, a 20-year-old British man serving in the Israeli army, was also killed, and at least 400 Palestinians have died.
The scenes that we've seen in Israel over the past 36 hours are truly horrifying. I want to express my absolute solidarity for the people of Israel. Now is not a time for equivocation, and I'm unequivocal. Hamas and the people who support Hamas are fully responsible for this appalling act of terror, for the murder of civilians and for the kidnapping of innocent people, including children. I've just spoken with Prime Minister Netanyahu to assure him of the UK's steadfast support.
Well, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht is the IDF's international spokesperson. He described the scene on the ground.
The visuals are ISO visuals. In a way, this is our 9/11. This is our 9/11, and you know, even more than that. I mean, it wasn't crashing into a building. It's also mutilating and attacking a party that was happening around the Gaza Strip, nature party, attacking civilians, kidnapping a grandmother.
Well, we can see live footage there of the Gaza skyline, where there has been incidents taking place with retaliatory strikes from Israel against Hamas. And we can see smoke there in the distance as one of those rockets has made contact with a target. On with the show, and Number 10 has projected the Israeli flag onto Downing Street. Sharing the image on X, the Prime Minister said it showed solidarity with the people of Israel. It comes after the flag was flashed onto several public locations in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. The flag has also been shared on public buildings in cities around the world, including Berlin and New York. Well, GB News understands that Labour plans to appoint a COVID corruption commissioner if the party wins the next general election. The new role is designed to help recoup billions of pounds of taxpayers' money lost during the pandemic. Labour believes there were cases of waste, fraud and flawed contracts. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves is expected to make the announcement. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Monday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle and tonight I'm joined by comedian Victor Daniels, who began his stand-up career in 1999. Around the same time, my other comedian guest achieved the best history A-level result in the country, but he doesn't like to talk about it. It's Nick Dixon. How are you both?
It was actually third best. Let's be factual.
Oh.
GBNews, the home of facts.
Yeah, third best. Still, that's not too shabby.
Not
Nick.
bad, I know. But no one said go to Oxford or anything because I was at a comprehensive school.
Yes.
I could talk about it all night.
Yes, but let's not get too much. How are you, Victor?
I'm good, yeah, and I just want to correct you. I started comedy in 2022, 21, according to my Nigerian passport.
There we go. Thank you for the correction. It's important we get these facts absolutely right. So we're going to have a quick run-through of Monday's front covers before we begin. The Daily Mail, leading with pawns of merciless terrorists. Most of the front covers will, of course, be covering the situation in Israel. Telegraph has US sends warships and jets to help Israel. The Guardian, violence escalates as death toll surges to over 1,000. And The Times is running with stunned Israel goes to war. The iNews, fears grow for 100 hostages. And finally, the Financial Times, Israel at war after deadly Hamas attack. Those were Monday's front pages. So obviously, very horrific news coming out of Israel, and they're all covering it. We're going to start with the Times. How are they reporting on this situation, Nick?
Well, the Times has stunned Israel goes to war, and they're covering the key parts that Britain, amongst more than 1,000 dead, and they're referring to Nathaniel Young, who's tragically died, and there's also Jake Marlowe, a British person who is feared kidnapped, and Sunak has offered intelligence and military aid, and US warships have moved closer, and they're saying at least 700 Israelis have died. So it's obviously horrific. Someone just referred to it as a sort of new 9/11 there, which it does feel like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. We get the story on X now, formerly Twitter, in a way we wouldn't have before. So it's horrific, but we sort of see the real story.
That's very interesting, isn't it? Is that these absolutely, it's impossible to watch some of these videos that are coming out of Israel, but we're being updated just continually about what's going on over there, which I suppose is important. We need to know what's going on. This is described as their 9/11, and I think that's right because it's specifically targeting civilians. I mean, there can be no justification for anything like this.
We can't say no jokes on this one.
No, absolutely not.
But the only thing I would say is it's forming our opinion. So just to give a more, balanced view, we don't know exactly what's going on with regards to the Palestinians, because the Palestinians seem to have done something that's instigated a war, and it just seemed like an odd decision.
Well, I mean, it's terrorist activity. Let's be honest. That's what it is. I don't think there's any way around it. We're going to go on to the front cover of Monday's Telegraph. So they're obviously also leading with the Israel story. There's a couple of other stories on this front cover it's worth looking at.
Yeah, they've got Border Force staff flaunt pride epaulets, and this is kind of kicking off on X at the moment. So the Home Office policy seems to ignore Suella Braverman's concerns, and we do a Suella Braverman's concerns ignored story every night.
Well, they are all routinely ignored.
They're all ignored. And so what happened is on September 29th, 40 Home Office officials participated in an online discussion of LGBT issues in which a transgender Border Force official based at Gatwick Airport told civil servants that wearing pride epaulets is, wait for it, both welcoming and a little warning that you may have your prejudices, but we're not going to tolerate them. And they later talk about we're an inclusive department, an inclusive country, whatever you happen to think. So it's an inclusive warning, Andrew. It's my favourite type of warning.
So my understanding is that the Home Office policy is you have to be impartial, right? And Braverman's point is that if you wear the pride epaulets, you are violating that impartiality. Is that a fair point, Victor?
I think it's a fair point, and as well, it's like, what message are we sending to people coming into the UK that we have an army of gay people that might strip search you? I think it's a...
Well, you know what? Alexander the Great was a gay military leader, and he did pretty well. So maybe that we need to frighten them. The Spartans.
I'm scared.
There we go.
It does put impartiality in jeopardy. I mean, the person here continued and said, "Oh, 2 Mormon missionaries had a problem with me, and they were staying in Soho, and that made that person smile." It's like, well, one, they prefer Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but anyway, it suggests a set of. It's an ideology. We're meeting you at the border with an ideology and a warning.
Well,
it's very strange.
Will they be allowed to wear sort of like images of, I don't know, Che Guevara or something like, or, you know,
probably that one. You picked a bad example because yes, they would be allowed that probably, but they wouldn't be allowed something else like a cross. Well, that's a good question actually. Could they have a cross?
Could they have something that promotes a sort of ideological worldview? I do wonder with this sort of stuff when it comes to the pride flag. I think a lot of people don't understand what it means. You know, the old pride flag was a rainbow flag, which was all about unity and inclusion and all the rest of it. The new Progress pride flag, which has black stripes, brown stripes, blue stripes, pink stripes, red circles for intersex people, all this stuff. A lot of gay people hate this, and they consider this to be quite anti-gay. A lot of women consider it to be quite misogynistic. So it's a bit of a minefield, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they should think, you know, more about it before they go through with it.
No, but Andrew, they're right, and their views are the only moral ones.
Oh, is that correct?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
no,
that's key.
Yeah, it's important that we remember that. OK, we're going to move on now to the I News. The I has a story about hostages. It's also talking about Reeves ruling out further tax rises. Have you got this one, Victor?
Yes.
This is Labour rules out announcing any more tax rises before next election.
Yeah, you called it. Reeves rules out any further tax rises.
But that's a good thing, isn't it?
I think it is a good thing, but the only problem is, does it matter? Because you're going to freeze on taxes, but everything else is going up.
Yes.
So it's like, what does it matter anymore?
It's also, I mean, this kind of gesture will obviously be a vote winner. I guess that's what they're trying to do there. But do they need a vote winner? I mean, at this point, Nick, they can get in no matter what they said.
Well, they would struggle to get them any higher, wouldn't they? I mean, how much higher could they really go? So it's not great news. Yeah, it's just sort of not that. It's not a massive story, is it? I mean, they're going to use this VAT revenue from private schools, which is a bad policy. But yeah, to be fair to Sunak, he has said, I mean, it's obviously terrible how high tax is, but he's pointed out that inflation is the key because that's the real tax rise. By halving inflation, in real terms, you'll have more money.
I mean, most of the more interesting stories has been from the Conservative Party conference this week. That was just much more headline generating.
Yeah, all Labour have to do is not make any massive mistakes.
That's it. That's all they have to do.
So it's like, we will do nothing. That's basically what they're trying to say.
Well, they could take the Biden approach, just hide in a basement for the whole campaign. And they'll probably win if they do that.
Pretty much.
Yeah, OK, well, we're going to move on now to the next front cover. What's this one? Oh, the Daily Star. Victor, this makes me very upset, this story.
It's bad. Hello, the bed bugs, I mean.
Yeah, just because the headline's terrible, that's what upsets me. We will say this only once, for goodness sake.
So basically, they're saying that the French are sending over, not sending over, but they're saying that a lot of bed bugs are coming over from France. And they've even found some bed bugs from France on us London Underground.
So how has that happened? Because, I mean, it is a serious point in a way, is that in Paris they're having this massive explosion of bed bugs, and they're having a serious problem with this infestation. But they're talking now about how it's going to come over to the UK. Do bed bugs swim? How would they achieve this?
Obviously.
Eurostar.
Come on, they've bought a ticket.
And then they just get on board. They're smarter than we thought. I mean, bed bugs, it is properly grim, those kind of creatures.
Well, it's shocking. I just looked into it. It's just another decline of London, decline of Britain story, like bed bugs on the tube, you know, suggests that people are just sleeping there. Maybe they are. But they're not just bed bugs, Andy. They're mutant super bed bugs.
I'm sorry?
Yes, it says clearly here, mutant super bed bugs. And I doubt that.
What does that mean?
I doubt that's hyperbole from the Star.
No,
that's
they wouldn't do that, would they?
That's a technical description. And they come from France, of all places, as if they haven't done enough.
It's the only acceptable form of xenophobia, isn't it?
It is, and I'm utilising it.
I think it's a bit of bang out of order on France, because, I mean, have you been to London Underground? I mean, the amount of mice. There's more mice in London than there is people.
Yeah.
So we can't say we're some wonderful, clean country.
Exactly. The bed bugs will make things better, if anything. Just more diversity.
Yeah, but the mice are citizens of this country. That's the key difference.
They're good
they pay their mice taxes.
British mice.
Yeah.
They have to conclude the bed bugs into the LGBT flag.
That's what they probably will. Don't give them ideas. They absolutely might. OK. Well, look, that's the front pages covered. But do join us in part 2 for criticism of the BBC, Starmer planning to scrap Rishi's plans, and the dangers of relying on IT. See you in a moment.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Monday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle, and I'm still here with comedians Victor Daniels and Nick Dixon. We're going to kick off this section with the Daily Mail. The Home Secretary is not mincing her words about what's going to happen to Hamas supporters. Victor, you've got this?
Yep, she's not mucking about. Suella Braverman warns full force of the law will be used against those who support Hamas and intimidate Jews in Britain as the Met Police steps up patrols in London after Israel attacks. Wow.
Well, it's been pretty grim. I mean, some of the footage of sort of people celebrating these terrorist activities on the streets of London, but that kind of thing, like, it's just gross. It's just so unpleasant.
It's celebrating, but they're voicing their concerns about Israel attacking Palestine.
That's not what it looks like, though, is it?
It could look how everyone wants to look, but that's what's happening because they support their country. I'm not.
Yeah, but the point is, you know, the image of it's just not appropriate, surely, to be celebrating when it is citizens being paraded, tortured, abused. You know what I mean? It's just not, whichever political aspect you take on this. There surely has to be some level of just restraint, just as a matter of human decency, right?
Yeah, someone on Sky News said they were really full of joy, full of pride at what has happened. You see, when you ask Palestinians on the street, or some anyway, about the attack. So it's pretty shocking. And Suella had a lot of criticism for saying multiculturalism has failed very recently, but this is surely what she meant, that the downside of multiculturalism is if you have people who don't feel British, haven't assimilated or integrated, and they obviously feel Palestinian, because the only people who probably feel British who feel this way are left-wing intellectuals, we've noticed, since this has happened. So, you know, what else can you say?
But even if you only feel Palestinian, you're still a human being with basic human empathy, right? You know, I mean, I don't see why that goes out the window.
I do agree with you, but I think what they're seeing is that Israel attacks Palestine, so when Palestine do something back, they see it. I know it's bad, but they're seeing it as a form to celebrate and to also protest.
Well, then this comes into the question of what should be permitted in terms of expression, right? Because there's sort of stuff going on the streets. But all I know is I look at that and I just think it's so deeply unpleasant. I sort of don't know what to...
Again,
I can't get into the mindset.
I agree with you again, but I think the key issue is how can Britain and America stop Israel and Palestine from fighting? And then there won't be any of this.
Well, that is a massive issue. That is huge. OK, well, we're going to move on to The Telegraph. This is a story about the importance of language. Nick, I think you've got this.
Yeah, BBC pressured to rip up style guide for refusing to call Hamas fighters terrorists. So a lot of people noticed this. They noticed the BBC using words like gunman and militant, and people thought, you know, especially lots of Jewish people, why are the BBC refusing to say terrorist for what seems like an ostensible terror attack? Horrific images and videos we've seen on X. And the answer is it comes down to the BBC style guide, where they...
Is that right? So
yeah, they don't want to call them terrorists, and presumably because of a concern about impartiality, no doubt. And obviously it's hard, but this is a clear example, I would say, of that going wrong. And it's not as if, by the way, it's not as if Palestinians all love Hamas. It's not as it's not as if it's the BBC trying to be impartial, but they're going too far because it's reasonable to use the word terrorist for Hamas. It reminds me a little bit of when the Washington Post called al-Baghdadi an austere religious scholar.
That's right.
It's not quite as absurd as that, but it's in that ballpark of language that tries to tone down things that really shouldn't be toned down.
I mean, you know, back in the day when the IRA are active, if my memory serves me, the BBC did describe them as terrorists at that point, didn't they?
I don't know. That would be an interesting question because it's similar.
I mean, in this case, you know, Hamas is a prescribed terrorist group. So it's not just about the delicacy of language. That's a fact. So it's just in terms of accurate reporting, surely they should be described as terrorists.
But to BBC, I think they've got a lot on their plate right now, so they just don't want to go into that world of terrorists. They just, let's be impartial on everything.
I would say they definitely have a lot on their plate. But on the other hand, they're being condemned. They're being criticised by all sorts of people on this.
Yeah.
You know, getting this right, you would have thought was important. Anyway, we're going to move on to this next story. Victor, I think this is The Express. Keir Starmer doesn't want to take credit for someone else's work.
Yeah, I'm with Keir Starmer on this. He said Keir Starmer announces he will scrap Rwandan plans as Prime Minister, even if it's working.
But that's the key thing, isn't it? Even if it's working, he will get rid of it.
But how can it be working? So, catch me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Someone comes into the UK illegally.
Yes.
And you're going to send them to Rwanda?
Apparently. On a plane.
How could that ever be working?
Well, I mean, they're trying to find some way to deal with the migration issue. Labour says it's got the magic formula. You know, Labour said that they will solve this.
Well, I've got a reverse question then.
OK.
So somebody goes to Rwanda illegally.
Yes.
Can we send them to Croydon?
I wouldn't wish that on anyone, to be fair. Nick, what do you think about it? I mean, Labour... They claim that the way to tackle this is to deal with the criminal gangs. You know, you stifle the criminal gangs and then you deal with the situation. And, you know, it is absolutely true. For all the flack that the Tories are getting about trying to deal with this, for the sake of the people on the boats, you need to deal with it because it's incredibly dangerous. People die as they cross. They're being exploited by gangsters. So is Labour right? Do they have the magic formula to deal with this?
Well, it's easier to say that when you're not in government, isn't it? What happened here was Victoria Derbyshire was asking the question, if it's working, would you still not support it? And he was like, correct. But the reason was, she was saying, what if the numbers are in decline? But his argument was, it's a tiny number of individuals who would go to Rwanda. So he's saying, even if the numbers are in decline, it wouldn't be enough of a decline. You've got to tackle it at source.
Yes.
And then he's basically saying he doesn't believe in the policy. So the way she asked it, he essentially refused the premise of the question. She's saying, even if there was a great success, everyone could see the numbers were going down, it was working, you'd still scrap it. He's like, yes, I would. Because he doesn't believe it'll ever work to a sufficient degree.
But this is one of those issues that both major parties say they have to resolve. And they're aware that this is really important to the electorate. Like poll after poll say that everyone is concerned.
Sending them to Rwanda is not even an option. It doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, they think it makes sense. I don't think it particularly makes sense either. I think
just to stick up for the Rwandans, who gives Britain the right to send people to Rwanda?
Oh, well, I think the Rwandan government is quite keen on this.
I'm sure the government now, you give them a bit of money, but what about the people? Have the people voted this in? No, they haven't.
Well, no, I'm not sure what the people themselves... I think the people themselves who are paying traffickers to come over here presumably want to be here.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's illegal.
Yeah, that's illegal, so tackle that, but don't send them to Rwanda.
No, OK, well, we'll see what happens when Labour sort of, I think, inevitably at this point get in and see if they can solve this issue as they claim. We're going to stick with The Express. This is an inspiring story for anyone who wants to erase their mistakes in the digital age.
That would be nice. Yeah, The Express say ignore it. Tory defends Keir Starmer over terrifying fake video of him swearing at staff. It's not terrifying. Well, that's a ridiculous word there. They're talking about Sir Simon Clarke, who said you should ignore this because it's a deep fake. If you don't know what the video is, it's been massive on X today.
We can't play it, Nick.
We can't play it because we got out at 5 a.m. But it's Starmer saying that effing tablet, F's sake, I literally told you, didn't I? F's sake, etc. And he says a lot of things like that. And we know it can't be Starmer because he's expressing a clear opinion.
Yes.
And so that's how we know it's not him.
And a degree of emotion.
Exactly. And that's probably why way Sir Simon Clarke wants to tone it down, because he doesn't want people to think that Starmer suddenly got passionate.
Well, it's kind of important as well that the Tories step up and say, don't listen to deep fakes, because, of course, this can be applied to them just as easily. You can easily get a deep fake of anyone. I listened to the record. It does... I mean, it's scary.
It sounds very accurate.
Have you heard it, Victor?
Yeah,
it sounds like Starmer.
It's more scary than anything, because are you telling me that we've got technology now that can mimic my voice and say that I've got 3 wives and I get blamed for having 3 wives? I mean...
And you're saying that now because that recording has gone out.
Yes.
And
whereas you want it to know that you have 4, and you don't want people to think you're reducing your wife.
That's the other problem, isn't it? That when things are authentic, they can claim it's deep fake. So, you know...
That's the thing. I mean, Trump could have used that back in the day with the locker room talk. He could have said, deep fake, folks, you know what I mean? Got out of the whole thing.
Well, exactly. I think I do find this quite
I think we need to destroy this technology. Destroy it.
I'm with you on that.
Like in
Destroy
Terminator.
AI. Yeah,
go to the source.
Absolutely, absolutely. Take out Skynet.
Yeah, Skynet, that's what it is.
You know what else has concerned me, though? A number of people like Sophie Ridge and Tom Tugendhat and various politicians have said that it's a threat to democracy. And that always scares me when they start using that kind of language, because usually that means they're about to say that GB News should be shut down and we should all stop eating meat. You know what I mean? When they start saying threat to democracy.
But it is.
Well, it essentially actually is, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a threat to the human race. It
is.
But I mean, you know, listening to that and hearing
But it's
how
what will they
authentic...
do, sorry.
But on the other hand, like, even if that were real, it actually wouldn't bother me. If Keir Starmer's caught in an off-camera moment swearing, so what? You're telling me the other politicians don't swear?
Yeah.
They turn the air blue.
We swear as soon as the camera stops.
Oh, I mean, you're foul-mouthed, what you are. So why would it be that bad anyway?
No, it would make me prefer Starmer and think that he actually has some standards and wants to get things done. He's like, you're messing with my iPad. I've told you so many times. I want competence.
Is that what it's about? It's about an iPad?
It's about an iPad, yeah.
So the message to Starmer is, just say it was you and you'll get more votes.
I think that's probably right. Yeah, absolutely. It makes it more interesting, certainly. OK, Monday's Guardian now. Some bad news for 3 students in Coventry because a computer said no.
Yeah, IT glitch has left us facing deportation from UK, claim students. So basically, these students tried to hand in their work.
These are international students.
International students. Yeah. Tried to hand in their work, but because of a glitch, they missed the deadline. Yes. And now if they stay in the UK to catch up, they will be deported. So they've got a dilemma.
Right.
But my question is, how is it they can afford £17,000 a year?
Well, do you know, it's £17,000 a year for international... This is why UK universities have so many international students. They pay so much more.
But they don't get no student loan or anything like that.
No.
They've
just got to be rich.
So the question is, who is the third world country? Britain or these other countries? Because no kids from London can be affording no £17,000 a year.
I would say they definitely can't. This looks like just a glitch with a computer. Can't you just fix it? Can't someone just fix it?
Well, no, it's because they now elapsed their visa because it put them over their visa time, so now they can't. They're due to be deported because they can't get their degree in time. They can only apply for a graduate degree, but they can't get their graduate degree because they can't get their degree because of the glitch. So they're in a catch-22. They're in an impossible situation.
It's easy to resolve. Just go back to Palestine. Palestine.
It's Pakistan, I think.
Pakistan, sorry. Yeah. And just work from home, because they did the exam working from home anyway.
Well, that seems to be the way things are going anyway.
Yeah, but then the British universities wouldn't get their money, because as you say, this is, I mean, the Guardian's found a very harsh example here. It is very unfortunate, but in general, this university thing is a bit of a scam, isn't it? So many people coming in, they have family that come in and they do some dodgy degree. This is not one, this is a good one, this is structural engineering, but there is a bit of
This is one of the proper degrees.
This is one of the proper degrees that I allow, and that's my new job, stamping degrees.
They should advertise that, Nick Dixon approved degrees, not these Mickey Mouse degrees like drama.
Although it is only University of Coventry, so we can all calm down.
Yeah, well, swings and roundabouts, isn't it? Well, we're going to move on now. That is the end of part 2, but do come back for part 3. We're going to be discussing water security, editing the Bible, and unusual pain relief. Don't go anywhere.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
the Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30am.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Monday's newspapers. We're getting straight into it with Monday's Independent. And Nick, what is Annalise Dodds up to?
Well, she said that Labour would introduce no loopholes ban on conversion therapy. It's one of these euphemistic terms where you go, oh, that sounds fine, but then, of course, you look into it. It's a trans-inclusive ban on conversion therapy, which basically means you won't be able to guide a kid anymore and say, are you sure this is a great idea? They call that conversion therapy now. So this puts children at risk if you get rid of that idea. So very worrying development, the kind of thing that's going to happen under Labour, which is why people should be worried about them. People saying it can't be worse than the Tories. It absolutely can. The other thing is, she says people responsible for anti-LGBT plus hate crime would also receive the tougher sentences they deserve, which could mean, let's face it, a rude tweet or something, and then suddenly you'll be cracked down on by Labour.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on this, Victor?
Yeah, well, I mean, if this comes in, I can see a lot of African priests that are going to be out of work.
It is a worry. It is a worry.
But in some ways, I'm with it. But I think if you're allowed to encourage,
yes,
then you should be allowed to discourage. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if people want to say they want to identify as a woman, a bear, a flying eagle, whatever, you need to go all the way with the operations now. I want a full operation.
You want people to have operations to be like a bear or an eagle?
If I'm talking to you and you say I identify as a bear, I want the full operation. If you identify as a woman, you have to be a full woman.
You have very rigorous standards, Victor.
Enough's enough. I'm talking to a man who's dressed as a woman, and he's saying I should call him Sheila, but he's got a beard. No, you need to have the full operation.
If you're a bear, actually catch salmon and
with your mouth
and attack people in the woods.
Yes.
I mean, this is something that Graham Linehan has talked about, because he went on a lesbian dating site and didn't change anything about his appearance to make the point that this lesbian dating site. He did pretty well. He pulled. He was quite happy with it. But he was making exactly that point, that there are people with beards and lesbians don't like men. That really shouldn't be controversial, should it? I wouldn't have
No, it shouldn't. And Dodds here says, I know it's been a difficult year for many LGBT plus people, rising hate crime. I mean, has it really?
No, not really.
It seems they dominate the entire culture.
It's the way that hate crime statistics are reported. It's actually, it elevates every year because it has to, right? Because it's all about the perception. So anyone who says, I perceive that this thing happened because it was motivated by homophobia, they add it to the stats. And actually, in real terms, hate crime has continually been going down for many, many years. So this sort of stuff, but this is really interesting about conversion therapy, because we think of gay conversion therapy as what they used to do back in the 60s, where they plug gay men up to electrodes, cruel forms of torture.
Seriously?
Yeah. That's not what's going on here. They're now talking about conversion therapy, trans conversion therapy. That's just a therapist saying to a kid, maybe there's other issues going on in your life. That's not conversion therapy. They're just calling it that.
Yeah, it's necessary guidance for young people, so it's very dangerous that they're going to get rid of it.
But then there should be no, OK, you want to be a woman? That's brilliant. That should be illegal too.
Well, I would suggest that adults should be able to do whatever they want, but when it comes
talking to children.
Talking to children, you know, children are not at the stage where they can make those kind of decisions,
they don't care.
as far as I can see. But I mean, I hope you're wrong, Nick, that Labour won't make things worse. But
it's going to be so much worse, and everyone's going to be like, oh, we thought it could be worse. It's going to be so bad. And then Farage is going to come through and win.
Is that right? Yeah. But remember, Nick, all of the gender identity ideology madness has come in under the Tories.
That is true. It's just that it's going to get even worse.
Great.
I know it seems impossible.
Sort of set up the shot and then Starmer scores. Yeah. To use a football analogy, which I never do.
You nailed it.
I don't understand the sport. OK, we're going to move on now to Monday's Eye, Victor. And this is another issue that is dividing the British public into two halves, because we don't have enough of that.
I think it's a nonsense story, but anyway, here we go. Half of British public think the government is failing to provide access to safe drinking water.
Do they?
Exactly.
I've never heard anyone talk about this issue. Is it really the case that this is a hot button topic?
I mean, I can't speak for Croydon, but Britain's not a third world country. There is enough water in this country. I'm sorry, this is just a weird
I've never
story.
had the issue of turning on a tap and water not emerging.
Never.
No, this does seem a weird one. Has someone just made this up, Nick?
Well, this bit's very strange. 70% of those surveyed answered that the UK was either currently experiencing drought or was at risk of drought over the next... The idea that we're in drought... They obviously don't live in the lakes, I can tell you that, where I'm from. Yeah, I mean, look, we could be in future because of just terrible mismanagement of resources. Yeah. That's definitely possible, and the water companies being terrible, and population going up. But what they're saying is climate combined with... Population going up combined with climate problems means we're going to have no water. I can definitely see a future where we don't have, like, as much water, and, you know, we have limited water in the house. Yeah. That'll probably because of mismanagement, population, probably more than climate.
Yeah, but they're talking a lot about the way in which climate change might lead to water shortages in future years. That's what they're saying here.
This is scaremongering.
Well, maybe, well, exactly. My point is, people don't know that. This is just something that we're being told now.
Yeah.
48% think the government is not fulfilling its responsibility.
Exactly.
I don't think they know or care.
No one cares.
Also, the idea that people are worried about this, that's just simply saying our propaganda's working. You know, we spend all day scaring people about climate, and lo and behold, they are scared. So it's kind of a successful nudge unit story.
I would like to see the actual questions on this polling, because maybe that's the way they're doing it. They're sort of saying, did you know that by this year we're going to be in this situation? Are you worried about that? Well, yes, when you put it like that, I'm worried about it.
And only 1,267 people were asked. I mean, if you ask the same 1,267 people, is Darth Vader's coming, and they say yes, does that now mean that Darth Vader's coming? It's nonsense.
It is absolute nonsense, but I'm glad we've covered it anyway. We've got a story now about remakes in the Daily Star, Nick, but it's not one that you're going to be happy about, I should imagine.
This is shocking. So China has rewritten the Bible to reject the West and tighten grip on the country. So it's insane stuff. I'll give you a few examples here.
Yes, please do.
The best one here actually comes from the... well, they've changed "Thou shalt have no other gods before me," right, to resolutely guard against the infiltration of Western ideology. I mean, that's so
actually,
ridiculous.
I actually think that's brilliant. I think they should be congratulated.
It's bleakly amusing.
The audacity of that is very funny.
And apparently, instead of Jesus saying, you know, let he without sin cast the first stone, he just stones the adulterous woman to death. I mean, apparently, it's almost beyond belief, but that's China for you. Although we can't be that smug, because we have these children's books, we have these programs trying to rewrite English history, British history to be more politically correct and claim there was all sorts of demographics here that weren't. And we also changed Roald Dahl and, you know, James Bond books. And on a related, not exactly the same note, we had Päivi Räsänen in Finland, who has faced this lengthy trial for quoting the Bible. Yes. And has faced hate crime charges just for quoting the Bible. So we're not that far off China, although this is particularly obscene.
At least with the Chinese revision of the Bible, it's quite funny. I mean, it sounds like what a comedy writer would do.
It is unintentionally funny. Yeah.
It seems like another chapter. It seems like King James is still alive and he's moved to China and now he's just adding more to the Bible.
Well, there are different versions out there, but this one I have to say is pretty unlikely. Jesus stoning someone. I mean, that's absolutely incredible.
I mean, look, we all know the Chinese Communist Party are pretty anti-Christian. They've done things like destroy mega churches and because Christianity.
But to be fair,
growing
if you
around
look around the world, which country is pro-Christian?
Loads. It's massive in Nigeria. There's loads of countries that are
massive in terms of people in there, but in terms of the government.
Oh, the government.
There's not really much government around the world that support.
Romania's one.
No,
Poland, not many.
Hungary, probably.
Yeah,
definitely not the UK.
No. So, I mean, but you make a good point, though, about the way that we've got this Orwellian quality as well, the rewriting of books, rewriting of history. The Roald Dahl ones were baffling to me. Didn't they make one of the fat characters thin? And didn't they have, the witches wear those wigs? And didn't it say something like, but women wearing wigs is absolutely fine and nothing to be ashamed of?
Yeah.
They're supposed to be terrifying.
And they changed the secretary's profession to STEM. She was suddenly a woman in the STEM field.
Is that right?
But can you really compare that to changing the Bible?
Well, you can in a way, because it's that same revisionist idea.
It's not the same scale.
It's not the same scale.
These are fictionary books.
Yeah, but it's the idea that you have to modify everything from the past so that it's palatable to the present. It involves a kind of complete negation or misunderstanding of the idea that things change over time.
That's fine.
Which is the basic premise of history, I would have thought.
Yeah, the difference is in motivation. We're doing it in the West because of woke ideology has taken over, and it doesn't allow for anything else. They're doing it because they're saying Xi is great and everything just must be about Xi. But it's the same sort of principle.
I mean, it both comes from an ideological position. All right, so the Telegraph now. Teacher is facing the sack. Victor, we've had a number of stories like this. What's this one about specifically?
Oh, the teacher sacked by Kofi School.
It's a C of E school.
Oh, sorry.
Church of England.
Sorry, my bad. School after refusing to teach, wait for it, extreme LGBT lessons.
You see, in my mind, it's probably very different to what they're describing. I think for it to be extreme, it would have to be...
Extreme, I'm thinking LGBT horror with 3D glasses.
Right, there we go. That would be pretty extreme.
This is how
Freddy
extreme
Krueger goes
going.
gay.
Yeah.
Well, but this is an interesting one because it is a religious school, and the teacher has made the point that she believes homosexuality is sinful. Although, actually, she said that she thinks that being gay is sinful, which is not the church's teaching. It's gay activity that's...
See, just going back to the China story, in the Bible, it does say that, I think it does, I could be wrong, that it says homosexuality is wrong. So if she's got a teacher and she's going with the Bible, then she's got a slight point.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? We had this recent case. It's one of the Scandinavian countries where an MP posted a Bible quote.
I just said it's Finland. It's Päivi Räsänen in Finland.
Right, and ended up being prosecuted.
I did a whole podcast on it.
So what,
what's the difference?
Nick, well, OK, so I suppose the difference is that you would say that in a school environment, it's important that the teachers are not saying things that attack children, So if a child is homosexual, if a child is of a certain race or whatever, that attacking that individual, particularly for children, is a problem. But it's really easy as a teacher to avoid that kind of thing. Just don't talk about it.
But in this story, she's saying she doesn't want to do LGBT lessons. She's not attacking LGBT. She's saying, I don't want to teach the lesson, especially extreme ones.
Well, yeah, but she's saying that being gay is sinful.
Yeah, but she didn't teach that.
No? What do you think, Nick?
Well, she was trying to give some balance because she said they're sending their kids to a Christian school, they're getting this other ideology which they haven't signed up for, and so she wanted to give another angle. And she says that humans are born male and female, so that part's correct. But then she does say, she says that sex outside marriage is a sin, so that incorporates huge swathes of the heterosexual population as well.
It does, yes.
And remember, it's a theological term. It's a similar problem that Tim Farron had. People are using sin here as synonymous with bad or evil.
Yeah.
But really, it's just a theological term that doesn't really have meaning outside of that context. So that's how they try and get you. That's how they got Tim Farron. Really what she's saying, I don't think it's actually that bad when you look at it. Look at this. The Teaching Regulation Agency said that what she said was contrary to fundamental British values, and so they had to get rid of it, which lacked tolerance. Well, then they were intolerant, and they get rid of it. And also, those values come from Christianity. These alleged British values come from Christianity anyway, so I have to point that out as well.
But wouldn't it be just better with children just not to invest any kind of ideological slavery?
Well, they're getting it. They're going to be told in age 11 to 13 that their identities like pansexual, asexual, transgender, etc.
Yes.
So they're going to get an ideology at school. It's just a question of which one.
Yeah, well, that's
or if you see Christianity as an ideology, which I don't exactly, it's a religion, but they're going to get some sort of indoctrination.
Beliefs, you can understand why that's comparable with an ideology, insofar as there is a set of beliefs.
You could say indoctrination. Someone pointed out recently, I think it was Liz Wheeler on X, you're going to be indoctrinating children into something. It depends, just whose values is it? Is it values we've had like free speech, Christianity, etc., or is it the new woke ideology?
Okay. And I think in this story as well, they should rename the school. It can't be Church of England. It should have nothing to do with the church, have nothing to do with the Bible. Just call it school.
Just school?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then teach them whatever you want to teach them.
I'm sure they'll take that on board, Victor. We're going to move on to the Daily Mail now with the story that is going to make Greta Thunberg unpopular on Mumsnet. Nick, what's this?
Yeah, this is women in childbirth urged to swap gas and air for water injections to save the planet. And the NHS warns the use of the popular pain relief is equivalent to 18,000 transatlantic flights.
Okay.
But tell that to a screaming woman who's dealing with labour. I mean, this is going to be awful. I mean, they're claiming that you inject this at 4 points in the lower back, like some sort of acupuncture or something, and this will just be equivalent to gas and air. But many are doubtful, let's say. I mean...
Has it been tested? Do we know...
Well, yeah, apparently it's been 6 in 10 women describe the jabs as effective. Tough times for the other 4.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean...
Because I hear it's painful, the whole childbirth
I've heard this as well.
thing.
Obviously, we're not experts on this panel, but we've heard the noises. It's basically...
I've seen it firsthand.
Have you? Victor's seen it, and he's still here
it wasn't a
to
walk
tell
in
the
the
tale.
park, right?
It's women, I commend you. It is very, very painful. Just watching it.
And what would have
my
happened
eyes
if
were
you
bleeding.
tried to just inject them in the back with water? Can you imagine?
A doctor's dying.
But you could say to the woman in labour, you know, but this is for the planet, you know.
I know, they'll probably be... Some Guardian readers will be fine with that, but the rest of them will just be furious. Because, look, the National Childbirth Trust is saying it's normally used for women experiencing back pain, and Rachel Clark of the... she's one... NICE? I don't know who they are, but she said it's mind-boggling. Anyway, loads of people. The Obstetric Anaesthetist Association said that it's terrible, so I highly question
And
it.
it doesn't really make sense. I mean, it's here to save the planet. I mean, if it's here to save the planet, then what's ULEZ about? ULEZ is here to stop this. So let's just let ULEZ
You're deviating into a whole other story there. All right, look, we've come to the end of part 3, but do join us in the final section for the secrets of comedy, the price of being funny, and an unusual technique for improving your garden. See you in a moment.
Join me, Andrew Pearce, and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Put your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Monday's newspapers. We're going to start this final section with the Daily Mail and a radical idea about humour being essential for joke writing. Well, Victor, that seems fair enough.
Well, yeah. The story is no joke should be off limits, says comedian Lee Mack. But the Star says the golden rule should be that the punchline needs to be more funnier than shocking.
Well, there's no great insight there. I think we all know this.
I totally agree. And I agree and I disagree because I think, yes, no joke should be off limits, but I disagree because it's up to the audience.
It is up to the audience, but this is the thing, that when we're always talking about whether comedians are punching up or punching down, or whether they go too far, whether they cross red lines, ultimately, if the audience don't laugh, it doesn't work. And they've made the judgment. Yeah. So you can rely on them, you know, and you can talk about any topic at all. If you can make it funny, then it will work.
And I have learned that if you go with a controversial topic and it's not funny, that's when it becomes controversial.
And it's got to be a whole lot better. The writing has to be better, the joke has to be better. Yeah, exactly. Totally. I mean, this isn't anything that we don't already know, is it?
No, but the problem with what he's saying is it's a gamble, isn't it? It has to be more funny than shocking, but you can't find out until you tell the joke. And then even if you do tell the joke, like Jimmy Carr did with his traveller joke he got in so much trouble for, and even if the audience are laughing, you can still be attacked because it's taken out of context. And politicians write tweets saying it was a statement that Jimmy Carr made rather than a joke. They say it's a statement. And this is where Lee Mack sort of points out the intention has gone out the window, that it now longer doesn't matter what your intention was, it's just what you did. And that's the thing, they take away intention, they take away context, so no one's safe.
That kind of literal mindedness, I just hate that. I mean, they did that with Louis C.K. when he made those jokes about the school shootings. And I think it was The Independent or one of those sorts of newspapers that wrote a headline that said, Louis C.K. mocks survivors of school shootings. No, he obviously wasn't doing that. Yeah. He was making a joke that was a little bit more sophisticated than maybe they understood.
But isn't literal-minded even a generous interpretation? Because if it was literal-minded, they'd say it's a joke at a comedy show. They're actually they're not even being literal. They're going further and saying, I know it looked like a comedy show by a comedian on a stage in front of people. It was actually a statement from a press conference. They're just lying, basically.
But that's what I mean. If the joke's not strong enough, then maybe the newspapers are right.
The problem with this, I mean, Lee Mack's talking about how it needs to be more funny than shocking, but both of those ideas are incredibly subjective. Something that you find hilarious, I might find completely unfunny. Something you find shocking, I might think, oh, that's fine.
And that's when we let the audience decide. And the audience also includes newspapers.
Can I add one slightly controversial point? Lee Mack seems cool, so nothing against him, but in general, comedians have gone along with the sort of very woke industry. They haven't spoken out against it, except for a few legends like us. And now, of course, you can say less and less things because people didn't speak out in this very woke industry.
Although more people are now.
They are now.
Have you noticed? We are trailblazers.
We are the pioneers, Andrew.
That's exactly.
Welcome to Pioneers with Nick Dixon and Andrew Doyle.
That should be the name of the show. OK, so the Telegraph now, Nick, is £10 million the going rate for a sense of humour now.
This is interesting. David Walliams says he can no longer be funny in 10 Million Britain's Got Talent lawsuit. Now, his point is actually not bad. And firstly, David Walliams was very nice to me on Britain's Got Talent, and I did get 4 yeses. But he was...
What happened, Nick?
I didn't get through because it's rigged, Andrew. You get the 4 yeses, but you still don't get through because you're not the right... You don't have the story. My nan died.
You need the story. Why didn't you make one up? I could have made one up.
I know, I should have just lied. I'm just too honest, Andy. I mean, they didn't literally say to me, to be very clear, that you need a story. That's my suspicion.
You should have just said you had a wasting disease.
I smashed the gig, got the 4 yeses, so I win a moral victory, as I so often do. But back to David Walliams. So he was nice to me. and that's all that matters. But his point is, they actually he claims they were recording him without his knowledge.
Right.
So that then he was in an atmosphere where he couldn't settle because anything he said might be recorded. And in general, he started to worry that he couldn't be spontaneous and funny. So they robbed him of his ability to do his job and his identity, and it's caused him great distress.
I'm going to disagree with this one because I've read the jokes. I mean, he called the man the C word 3 times. He said a woman's so boring he wouldn't want to sleep with her. I mean, these are not funny jokes. David Williams, I've never found him funny. It was the other guy.
Yeah, but those are things he said, not realising he was being recorded.
Right. So, but isn't the point that when people are in their private conversations with people they know and they're joking around, they take risks with the jokes and some of the things may not land and, you know...
I'm not talking about offensive. I'm talking about it's not funny.
Right.
So it's like, with the microphone on or off, he's just not a funny...
He wasn't trying to be funny. They were catching... Like, we heard the stuff you said during the break. It's like if we captured that and everyone could hear it, you'd be in a lot of trouble.
How would you feel, though, if we were constantly being recorded? Well, I suppose we are.
It wouldn't bother me. If I'd known that, I'd even step the jokes up off stage as well.
Really?
Could you do that in the next... Oh, we're in the show after this, so you can't
You're performing all the time, that's what it is. Okay,
always on.
Always on, never off.
Moving to the Times now, Victor. A story about multitasking.
I love this. I love the story.
Go on.
The headphones are in. How a literal editor learnt to love the audiobook. So basically what they're saying is people are learning to read books just by for the headphones. And I am one.
Are you doing it?
Oh, do you know how many books I've read?
I couldn't even guess.
I've even written them down. Mame from Jessica George, Stronger Female by Fern Brady. I'm going in.
You're writing down the list of books. And are you... Right, so but you're listening to them rather than reading them. Is that a better experience?
It's a much better experience because you could be at work, you could be...
You're listening to one right now.
Damn right.
Yeah. Nick, I haven't got on with the audiobook. I did try it. I understand the point. You know, I don't think it's a bad thing. You know, and as kids, we all were read to. You know.
Yeah, I love that it's back. It seems like quite a quaint medium to have resurfaced. So I love that it's back. I listen to them a lot. I won't listen to fiction.
Right.
To me, fiction's like an aesthetic experience, has to be read. But I'll listen to non-fiction because it's basically information or an argument, and it's very useful because I'm interviewing someone every week on my podcast, so I'm always listening to their book.
Yes. And you can do it when you're on the move, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And Spotify are competing now with Audible, and they're going to bring in this thing where it's 15 hours a month. The problem with that is if a book's really long, Andrew, your book is 11 hours, 28 minutes.
Yeah.
So you'd be like, do I want to commit my entire month almost to Andrew Doyle?
Well,
so ask ourselves this question.
You can put me on double speed, can't you?
But you'll still sap that many hours, won't you? Because you're 11 hours, you're only allowed 15. Won't it still count?
I don't know.
But that's a book a month.
No, but that's what he's talking about.
That's
good. You think it's a good thing?
Yeah, one book a month.
I just can't get...
Listen to Andrew's book, The New Puritan. It's very good.
I'll be angry if I've read your book and I'm not happy afterwards. I mean, that's my book for the month.
Victor. The Telegraph now, Nick. What's this? Colours having smells? Explain this to me, please.
True colours come shining through thanks to what we can smell. So the idea is, if you just smell coffee and you look at a colour that's neutral grey, you'll choose a more red-brown colour. And you'll go for a more blue version if you've just had caramel pumped into the room. Apparently, I don't really get that. But this isn't really new. Robert Cialdini discovered this. He had a book called Persuasion. Then he had another book called Persuasion, where if you touch something cold, whatever, you'd make a different choice, and all these kind of things. So it goes for temperature, it goes for colour, sound, pitches. You can influence people. I don't know if it's influencing their vision, but it's influencing their mood. It claims it's their vision. Maybe it is.
Well, this isn't something I know anything about. But Victor, what do you make of this?
I can agree with it, but who cares? Do scientists just work for free?
I think
that's a great question. Who cares?
Like, they need to come up with some... They need to come... Scientists out there, yeah? Go home, get into your laboratory, yeah? And find a way of me going to work and not paying taxes. Now, that's something that...
That's something that you can get behind.
I can get behind. It smells.
Do you think that's really within the realm of scientific...
I don't care, because they're coming up with nonsense.
There are a lot of those sort of stories where scientists have done a study and you think, was that really necessary?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on.
They can use this in marketing, though, to try and trick you to spend more money. That's why it comes from persuasion and things
I
like
see.
that. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of important. All right, well, look, the show is nearly over. But before we leave, let's just take another quick look at Monday's front pages. The Daily Mail has pawns of merciless terrorists. The Telegraph also leading with the Israel story. US sends warships and jets to help Israel. The Guardian, violence escalates as death toll surges to over 1,000. The Times is leading with stunned Israel goes to war. The News, fears grow for 100 hostages. And finally, the Financial Times has Israel at war after deadly Hamas attack. Obviously, all of the front pages running with the same story there. Very chilling news from Israel. That's all we've got time for. But thank you to my guests, Victor Daniels and Nick Dixon. Simon Evans will be here tomorrow at 11 p.m. He'll be joined by Bruce Devlin and Nicholas DeSanto. And if you're watching the repeat of this show at 5 a.m, do stay tuned because it's time for breakfast.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they